Hello guys, Josh from C2000 here, and today I'm going to be talking about a game called Spec Ops: The Line. And this game was a game that came out in 2012. And you might be like, well Josh, why are you talking about a game that came out in 2012? Well, that is a rather good point. I mean, Spec Ops: The Line won a few awards back then, but I don't remember it really being talked about that much afterwards, and I really do think that's a real big shame, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in a moment when we get the chance. First off, I want to mention that the main playable character is voiced by Nolan North. We also have some other pretty big voice talent in here, actually, looking at it. Yeah, not small name at all. And it got a 8.5 on IMDb when it came out. So, yeah, not badly received at all. But the thing is, I wanted to talk about it because the thing is, Spec Ops: The Line was famous for being a piece of social commentary, a piece of talking about like the way we perceive war and the way games kind of glorify war, and it's to do with the whole video game violence debate. But I'm not really going to get into that. I just want to talk about the game as more of like a piece of social commentary, and I want to kind of highlight why people get so angry at things like the social commentary in things like The Last Jedi, movies like that don't seem to do it as well. But anyway, now that's out the way, I'm going to start off by saying, first of all, the gameplay in the background is going to be of the first chapters or so. It's not going to be that long, and thankfully it's going to miss most of the grisly stuff that's in the game, because a lot of that's later, but we'll get into that in a moment. Okay, so the first place to start when talking about this game is to talk about the setting. The setting is in Dubai. I think it's kind of supposed to be a near future kind of thing. There's never any exact dates referenced in the actual game. It's a very self-contained story. I think it's mainly why 2K never brought out like a Spec Ops: The Line 2, simply because the game's story didn't really allow for there to be a follow-up. Also, I want to talk about the presentation of the game. PC, it has very limited graphics options, but it's okay. It looks fairly decent considering its age. It's not Crisis, but you know, it's not ugly either, and it's very well presented. You have a choice of two filters when you start the game up. I tend to use one that makes things look a little bit darker, because I think they're kind of film grain type. It's called vintage. I think like the kind of the film grain kind of look kind of suits the tone of the game, so I've always gone with that. But anyway, the game is centered around three Delta Force operatives, Captain Walker and his two comrades. His two comrades being Adams and Lugo. One's a lieutenant, one's I think a corporal. I'm not entirely too sure, but Lugo is basically the jokey one, and Adams is the strict, serious, you know, let's do it by the book kind of guy. And Adams is kind of somewhere. Adams is the strict, do it by the book kind of guy, and your character's kind of in between at the start of the game, and that's the way they start. I mean, the game opens with a gunfight with you in a helicopter, like gunning down other helicopters, and then it kind of jumps back to earlier in the story and kind of tells the story from there. This allows the game to slowly kind of pan out and show what has come before to get you to that point. And it also kind of shows the degradation of morals in your squad mates and yourself. I mean, the events of the game aren't exactly the fun-filled ride games like Call of Duty are. I mean, it's the subject matter of the game is pretty grim. It's it's why I'd call it an interesting story, not a fun story, because it's pretty grim, and there's some moments in it that genuinely left me feeling uncomfortable. And I mean, like, the only other mission I can ever think of that's made me feel like that is No Russian. And, like, you know, these are the kind of missions that make you think, like, damn, this is some pretty serious, like, you know, this is out of control, like, you know, and it emits an emotional response. And also, the game has a choice system, but it's not in your face. There's 3, I believe, very subtle... Okay, the last one isn't very subtle. But there's 3 very subtle points, mostly anyway, where you get to pick how you approach things. And thing is, it doesn't tell you, the game doesn't tell you, it's so easy for you to just do what you'd expect a shooter to get you to do, which is shoot first. But you know, there's not a very, it's not on the nose. It's not like, hey, we can do this or we can do this. It's like, this is going down, and then you have the option to react differently. The first, and each of them has their own corresponding Steam achievement. I will just pull that up for you now, and I will talk about that. The first one in the game is a man of action or a man of patience, and these are basically, you are given a situation where you can kill your target or you can rescue civilians. Man of action is you go and you target the target, and you know, you you roll with the punches. Oh yeah, I forgot, there's actually more than 3, my bad. Then you've got damned if you do and damned if you don't. This is a part of the game where Conrad, the leader of the downed 33rd, I'll get to them in a minute, he gives you a choice. He's like, this man stole water, a capital offence in our society, and this man, instead of turning him in, killed his entire family. 5 people died because of these 2. And you decide who dies. And if you don't, we'll shoot you. So that's like the situation Conrad puts you in. And you've got the damned if you do, damned if you don't. 2 achievements to do with that. Then you've got a line held and a line crossed, which comes a lot later in the campaign. This has to do with, basically there's a major point about halfway through the campaign. If any of you watching this have ever heard of Spec Ops, you will probably know what this is, because this is the mission I said that reminded me of No Russian in terms of how uncomfortable it made me. Is definitely that mission, and most of you will know what it is. I will put the name of it in the comments, and I'm not going to show gameplay from that mission, guys, don't worry about it. I'm talking about the game, but I'm not going to show, because, you know, not everybody wants to see that kind of stuff, and it's not very pleasant. And it kind of ties into the overall thing of the game showing the uglier side of war. You know, the side of war most video games don't really show you. Like, you know, less the you're the hero and the you're the monster kind of side of war. It's like, I know I make it sound very black and white. War isn't black and white, but you know, it's just a simplification for the video. I'm not I'm not gonna get all philosophical on you guys. Don't panic. But the game very much puts forward this idea that war isn't a good thing. War shouldn't be glorified, and it has this kind of message, this undertone, pretty much the entire way through after the halfway mark. And the jokes get dropped, the light-hearted tone of some of your squad mates, that banter disappears. And even subtle things like the way Nolan North delivers his lines later in the game show a change in their character. I mean, for example, at the start of the game, you ask one of your teammates to take a guy out, he'll do a very militant-like hand gesture, and he'll be like, target marked, take him out. Whereas towards the end of the game, he'll just wave his hand like a maniac, and he's like, kill that piece of shit. Like, you know, he's very, you know, you can sense a change in the characters, and it ties into the story and like the stuff they've seen, the stuff they're responsible for, essentially war crimes. Because the mission I was briefly skimming over, you are put in a position where the main bad guy of the game, in quotation marks, is in this building, and pretty much half of his army is stationed between you and him, and you come across some white phosphorus, and they used it on you and your allies earlier, and one of your squad members has the very bright idea of clearing the path to the building using the white phosphorus. Yep. And you do that and you make your way to this building, but you find out the building wasn't a military target. And you find out that your squad is responsible for the death of 70 civilians. Conrad gives you the exact number at the end of the game when you confront him. And it's this where the tone shifts completely. It's gone from you being a hero who's here to rescue and here to help, to being very murky and definitely starting to enter a very morally grey area, where it's like, you rationalise it by saying, yeah, they were there, you know, casualties of war, collateral damage. Your character rationalises it, is like, you know, collateral damage happens. The other two are just like, depending on the choice you make with the civilians, the other two can have different reactions, and it's very much like your squad mates at this point are just disgusted, like, at your behaviour. It's like, what? Like, you just made us kill all these people, and all you can say about it is it's collateral, or it's not your fault, it's not our fault. You know, who the hell do you think you are? And it's like, they don't say that exactly, it's just a generalisation of what they're saying, but I can't remember. I played it last night and I can't remember exact quotes. However, what I can remember is the game is responsible for some cheeky little fourth wall breaking, and I'm gonna address the cheeky little fourth wall breaking. Normally, I don't like fourth wall breaking. It normally really gets my goat, and it really irritates me. If you know me, you know I despise fourth wall breaking. It's why I hate Deadpool as a character, because he does it every 5 seconds and it does my head in. It's also why I hate the new version of Harley that's in Rebirth and New 52. No offense, Harley fans, I like her normally, it's just the whole fourth wall breaking in the new incarnation I can't stand. But anyway, that aside, we're talking about a more serious topic now, Spec Ops, so we're diving back down that rabbit hole. And basically, there's 2 quotes on the loading screens. The most notable one that was even quoted by Conrad and is in the marketing is, "Do you feel like a hero yet?" And then there's the other one that is, "How many Americans have you killed today?" And I will quickly do the maths for you, because the game has an achievement for how many kills you get with certain things. You know, pretty mandatory achievements for games. I'm just going to pull up a calculator now, and I'm going to do this. So, friendly fire, show mercy, that's 1. Show restraint, that's not it. I'm basically counting up pretty much all the deaths you're responsible for that I can pin down. Not a bridge too far. The Great Escape, no. Damned if you do. You shoot somebody and damned if you do, so that's another one. Line held, that's, yeah, that ain't. This is based off of my playthrough, so a line held, nobody was killed there. Marksman assault rifle, get 350 kills with an assault rifle, added that. Marksman rifle small arms, get 100 kill with small arms. Blind luck, get 5 kill with blind fire. 5. The army of 1, kill 3 enemies with a single grenade, so that's 3. Close combat carnage, kill 4 enemies with a shotgun in 10 seconds, so that's 4. Battle management, kill 50 enemies using squad commands. You're responsible for that because you gave the order. Human factor, kill an enemy by tagging them with a sticky grenade, so that's 1. Danger close, kill a weapon expert within 5 meters away, so that's 1. Then I'm gonna add preventative diplomacy, that's 1. Some of these are generalizations, by the way, because and blow up 10 explosive objects, killing at least 1 enemy each time. That's a generalization. I'm just going to put that down as 10. Then plus the 70 you're responsible for with the phosphorus. That leaves 597, I believe, if my maths is correct. Yep, so 597, and to answer the question about US soldiers, about 3/4 of it, I would say, is US soldiers of that number, because you only fight local insurgents for 2 chapters, which are the very first chapters of the game, and then after that you bump into the regiment, the Damned 33rd, which is actually a reference to the 33rd Infantry Regiment in the United States Army, which was active between the 1960s and the 1950s, and was, ended officially in 1956. So yeah, they pulled information like that from real sources, and they took inspiration from real things. I'm going to put a link in the description to a Wikipedia page about the real 33rd Infantry. I will also put the fictional wiki about the Damned 33rd, which is the Dubai, like the group in the game that you fight. So I'll leave those articles down in the description below. One's fandom, one's Wikipedia. Please don't get which one's please don't get them mixed up. Which one's real and which one's fictional? It's not hard. Please don't do that. I don't want to be responsible for that. Okay. But anyway, that aside, I think it really just, the game tackles things that most other video games don't, and I really think it ought to be commended for that. And it's just, yeah, it won a few awards at the time, but I think because of how ugly the nature of the story was, it got swept under the rug by a lot of people, because it really does talk about some of the more grim, miserable points of humanity. And I mean, it even talks about insanity and like the road to insanity, because like Walker starts a perfectly sane man that has hardened beliefs, and he's hard set in his beliefs, so hardened in those beliefs to the point where it would drive him mad. And by the end of the game, he's having hallucinations, he's not seeing things clearly. Conrad has really been dead for years, and the Conrad that he's meeting at the end of the game is just a hallucination to justify his actions. And it's, then from there you get 3 endings depending on what you do. And you have 3 different achievements based on that. One appropriately called Live and Let Die, Live and Let Live. And there's the one that I got called Carry On Soldier, I believe. No, you're relieved of duty. That's what the achievement is. Yeah. Carry On Soldier was the one I also got for doing the one ending. But yeah. That's basically... So yeah, that's it. I've spoke about Spec Ops: The Line now. And honestly, it's a shame this game doesn't get talked about a bit more, because I think it's it really does show the capability of, and the storytelling power of the genre. I mean, it's something that, like, movies do it, but games, it's like, games can be longer. You can tell a much longer story with a video game than you can a movie, simply because, you know, we buy a game, we expect it to be a reasonable length, and we expect to have some investment for our money. And, you know, I got Spec Ops The Line on sale from... It's on sale for G2A now, and it's 44 pence. So, honestly, guys, if it sounds like it's something you'd enjoy, I'm warning you, though, ahead of time, it gets pretty grisly after the halfway mark. It's not a pleasant story. It's interesting, and it's rich, and it's got a lot to say for itself, and really does make you think about the genre of first and third person shooters, and like kind of the whole thing. Like, actually, it's really interesting how none of them approach it this way. None of the devs approach it this way, because, you know, the devs want you to feel positive when you come away from their game, and it's like, actually, why don't they do this? Why don't they show this? Why don't they push the boundaries a little bit? And it's honestly, I think this game got swept under the rug because of how ugly some of the aspects of the story were, but ultimately, guys, if you feel like you got a strong line stomach, go for it. It's only 44 pence. You probably won't regret it. But I'm telling you now, just, you know, maybe watch a review or a few walkthroughs before you decide to buy it, because it's not for everyone. But it's a good story, has a lot to say for itself. And on the topic of social commentary, getting back to our overall topic, I think everyone's getting mad about political ideology and ideas being put into media, games, movies, and I really do think it's not because it's getting added in, it's the way it's getting added in. It's getting added in to the point where you can poke a hole through it and it's staring you right in the face, and it's not good, you know. I mean, you could argue Spec Ops has political meaning. It's kind of showing that, hey, look, you know, war isn't what you guys make it out to be. This is what it's like, or this is closer to what it's like. I'm not saying that's actually what it's like. I'm not a soldier. I don't know that. But, you know, it's basically saying, hey, you know, stop glorifying this. Glorifying this is not okay. And you know what? I'm a gamer. I enjoy those kind of games. I'm not saying stop making them. This is not an attack on the gaming industry. This is very much talking about the impact and kind of the legacy of this game. It irritates me because there are people in Hollywood that get paid millions on millions of pounds, dollars, whatever, and they can't come up with anything anywhere near as creative, and they can't put across their points anywhere near as good. I mean, Spec Ops The Line, if you ignore what I've just said about some of the undertones and the deeper meanings, if you ignore that and just play it as a shooter, you can walk away from it and be like, oh, that was it's a shooter with a grim story. So what? Whereas, you know, some of us that, you know, like, some people who look at the achievements, look at, like, the menu even changes as you go through the game. I didn't notice this, but I found it on YouTube. I'll put a link to that in the description. But the menu shows the life of a sniper in the Damned 33rd. And I didn't notice this because I finished the game pretty much in one sitting. But it's just a shame that this game doesn't get the recognition it really deserves. I mean, yeah, it got a few rewards at the time, but it just faded into obscurity. But then again, I suppose it's kind of fitting, because that's what happened to the city in the game. So, you know what? I'm going to end with one question. Do you feel like a hero yet?